Grandma always believed that truth had a way of clawing its way out, no matter how deep someone tried to bury it. I didn't understand what she meant until the day my brother gave me the wrong date for her will reading, and laughed about it like it was some harmless prank. "It was yesterday," he snickered through the phone, voice thick with amusement. "Should have set an alarm or something, dude." For a moment I couldn't speak. My breath got stuck somewhere in my throat, and the world around me blurred. I was sitting in the driver's seat of my car, parked outside the house Grandma lived in for nearly 40 years. The house we grew up visiting every summer. The house that smelled like lavender tea and fresh bread, even on days she barely had the strength to stand. "Mason," I finally managed. "What do you mean yesterday? You told me it was today." "Yeah, and you believed me?" He laughed harder. "Come on, bro. You always fall for everything." My grip tightened on the steering wheel until my knuckles turned the color of old bone. "I trusted you," I said, voice cracking. "Well, that's on you," he replied breezily. "But hey, don't stress. You didn't miss much." "What did the lawyer say?" I asked. "About Grandma's estate?" "It doesn't matter," he said quickly. Too quickly. "Nothing was left for you anyway." My heart thudded painfully. "That's not true. Believe what you want."
I tego kropka.
The call ended before I could say another word. I sat there in silence, numbness crawling through me like winter frost over a window pane. Mason always teased, always joked, always mocked. But this wasn't the kind of thing you played with. Not Grandma. Not her last wishes. Not the one person who ever made both of us feel like we were worth something. I closed my eyes and let her voice echo in my memory. "Noah, your heart is soft. Don't let the world turn it hard." But in that moment, my heart didn't feel soft. It felt like someone had wedged a knife between its ribs and twisted. There was no way she left me nothing. I was the one who took her to doctor appointments, who fixed her garden fence when it collapsed, who brought her groceries every Friday. Mason barely visited unless there was free food or money involved. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. I reopened my messages and scrolled through everything Mason had sent. Every detail about the will reading, the time, the date, the venue came from him. I never once confirmed anything with the attorney. Because I trusted him. Because he was my brother. Because Grandma always told us to look out for each other. But Mason never listened to her as carefully as I did. I started the engine and pulled away from the curb, my chest tight and heavy. I didn't know exactly what I planned to do, but I knew one thing for certain. I was not going to let Mason's word be the final one. The lawyer's office was 20 minutes away, sitting wedged between an old bakery and a dusty antique store. When I parked and stepped out, a gust of cold wind slapped against my face. Lights were still on inside. I hurried to the door and knocked. A few seconds later, Mr. Alden appeared, looking exhausted but polite as always. "Noah?" he frowned. "Are you all right? Is the will reading over?" I asked urgently. "Over?" He blinked in confusion. "It's happening right now. Why are you out here?" My stomach dropped. "My brother told me it was yesterday." A shadow of anger crossed his features. "Not at me, but at the situation." "That is absolutely false," he said firmly. "Come in. You're not late." I followed him through a narrow hallway into a large conference room. Voices were murmuring, papers shuffling, people turning in their seats. All heads snapped toward me when I stepped inside. Even Mason. He sat near the front, legs stretched out like he owned the room, chewing gum with aggressive boredom. When our eyes met, something dark flickered in his expression. "Well, well," he said loudly. "Look who rolled in." I ignored him and sat at the opposite end of the table, my pulse pounding behind my ears. Mr. Alden closed the door and moved to the front. "Now that all beneficiaries are present," he said pointedly, "we will proceed." Aunt Linda shot me a sympathetic look. Cousin Hannah waved meekly, but most eyes shifted back and forth between Mason and me, sensing the tension thick as wet cement. The reading started with sentimental items. Photo albums, jewelry, keepsakes, nothing major. People nodded, sniffled, whispered quietly. But when Mr. Alden pulled out a separate envelope, A thick cream-colored one sealed in blue wax. Every sound in the room died. "This," he announced, "is the personal letter your grandmother wrote regarding the final distribution of her estate." My throat tightened. He broke the seal gently and unfolded the pages. To my grandsons, Mason and Noah, the room went still, as though the air itself held its breath. "You two were born with the same blood, but different storms inside you. Mason, you are fierce and unafraid, but too often you let pride steer the wheel. Noah, you carry more kindness than you realize, but you silence yourself in the name of peace." My eyes burned. Mason shifted uncomfortably but kept his jaw clenched. "I raised you both with love. I watched you stumble, grow, fight, and mend. But in my final years, I also watched who came by my side, and who only came when it benefited them." A sharp inhale echoed from someone in the back. "Noah, you brought warmth into my home. Mason, you brought noise. I cherish both in different ways. But I cannot ignore the truth." My pulse thudded, and then the words that would change everything dropped like stones. "I leave my home, my land, and 75% of my total estate to my grandson Noah." The silence that followed wasn't normal silence. It was an explosion, muted, a shockwave through the whole room. Someone gasped. Someone muttered, "Oh my God!" Someone dropped a pen. I didn't move. Couldn't. My ears rang. My lungs forgot how to breathe. "Grandma." "She really—" Mason sat frozen, face a mask of disbelief slowly cracking into fury. And to Mason, the letter continued gently. "I leave the remaining 25% and the hope that he will learn that love is measured in actions, not entitlement." Mr. Alden folded the letter and placed it down. The room stayed still. Then, "You've got to be kidding me," Mason erupted, pushing out of his chair so hard it screeched across the floor. "This is BS. Grandma would never." "Your grandmother wrote it herself," Mr. Alden said calmly. "She was OLD," Mason shouted. "She wasn't thinking straight. She was sick. Noah probably manipulated her." "Sit down," I said quietly. "What did you say to me?" Mason snarled. "Sit down." He stormed toward me, and for a second, I thought he would actually swing. Mr. Alden stepped between us quickly. "Mason, that's enough. This is a joke," he hissed. "A sick joke. He doesn't deserve anything." I swallowed hard. "I didn't ask for this." "The hell you didn't," he spit. "You always played the victim. You always made her choose you." "I didn't make her do anything," I said. "She chose what she chose." "You're not taking the house," he threatened. "I'm telling you right now. I'm not letting you walk away with everything." "It's not everything," I said softly. "It's what she wanted." "Shut up," he shouted. People were staring in horror. Aunt Linda stood up as if preparing to intervene. But then Mason pointed at me, breathing hard, eyes full of poison. "You're going to regret this," he whispered. "I swear on everything, you're going to regret this." He stormed out, slamming the door behind him so violently dust fell from the ceiling vent. The echo lingered long after he was gone. I sat there shaking, from fear, from shock, from heartbreak I didn't know how to process. Because Grandma had loved him too. She really had. He just never let himself feel it. After the meeting ended, people approached me with murmured condolences, congratulations, awkward pats on the shoulder. I barely heard any of it. When I finally got back to my car, my hands were trembling too much to fit the key into the ignition. This wasn't how Grandma would have wanted her final message to tear the family apart. But Mason made sure it did. And deep inside I knew this was only the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mason's face. Twisted, furious, humiliated. Unlike me, he never handled losing well. Hell, he didn't even handle winning well. Competition pumped him like adrenaline, and losing? Losing was a wound he blamed on everyone but himself. At 3:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Enjoy Grandma's house while you can." My stomach clenched. Then another. "You have no idea what's coming." I blocked the number, but the unease stayed lodged in my chest like a splinter. The following morning, I drove to Grandma's house, now legally my house, though calling it mine still felt wrong, like wearing someone else's skin. The gate creaked open as I stepped inside. The familiar smell hit me first: dried roses, lemon soap, and old wooden floors. Grandma's scent. A scent that used to comfort me but now made my throat tighten with grief. I walked through the living room, running my fingers along the furniture she polished weekly. The fireplace still had half-burnt logs in place, as if waiting for her to sit in her armchair again. In her bedroom, sunlight seeped through thin curtains, casting warm shapes over the quilt she sewed by hand. I sat on the edge of her bed and let myself cry quietly for the first time since she passed. Not because of the will, not because of Mason, but because she was gone, and I was facing everything alone. After maybe an hour, I finally stood, took a deep breath, and decided to check the backyard, her sanctuary, her garden. And when I stepped outside, my heart stopped. Every flower bed was torn apart, soil overturned, plants ripped from the ground, broken pots scattered like bones. Her rose arch, the one she nurtured for 20 years, snapped clean in half. Someone had destroyed everything. I dropped to my knees, grabbed a handful of crushed petals, and felt something inside me break. Only one person would do this. Only one person would hit where it hurt the most. Mason. My phone buzzed again. A message from a different number. Beautiful morning, isn't it? My hands shook as I dialed him, but he didn't pick up. Coward, I whispered, voice raw. Later that afternoon, Mr. Alden called. Noah, I hate to tell you this so soon, but your brother has contested the will. I felt the world tilt. He's claiming you forced your grandmother to change it, the lawyer continued. Says you manipulated her. What? That's insane. I know. I've reviewed the documents. Your grandmother's mental state was clear and documented. But Mason is persistent. Persistent. That was one way of putting it. I'll handle the legal side, he assured. But Noah, be careful. Sometimes financial disputes turn personal. They already had. That night, I stayed at Grandma's house, cleaning what I could in the garden, though every handful of ruined soil felt like another punch to the chest. Around midnight, I heard footsteps outside. Slow, deliberate. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped onto the porch, heart pounding hard enough to hurt. The beam of light swept across the yard. Empty, silent, until a sharp crack sounded behind me. I spun around just as a rock shattered the front window, exploding glass across the floor. I ducked instinctively. A voice yelled from somewhere beyond the fence. You don't deserve any of it, Mason. Before I could chase after him, the sound of a car engine revved loudly, tires screeching against asphalt, then fading into the night. I stood there shaking, surrounded by broken glass, breathing in fear, anger, sadness, and something darker, resolve. He wasn't just angry, he was dangerous, and he wouldn't stop. Not until he took everything Grandma left me, or until he destroyed it. The legal battle started 3 days later. Mason showed up to the courthouse with an expensive lawyer he definitely couldn't afford without some creative borrowing from someone. His suit was wrinkled, and he wore a fake confidence like cologne. When our eyes met, he smirked. You ready to lose everything, little bro? I ignored him and walked into the courtroom. The hearing lasted hours. His lawyer claimed Grandma was mentally impaired. Mr. Alden presented medical records showing she was lucid. His lawyer claimed I manipulated her. Aunt Linda testified that I was the only one who cared for her. His lawyer insisted the will was forged. Forensic experts confirmed the handwriting as genuine. The judge's patience thinned visibly each time Mason spoke. By the end of the day, it was clear Mason had no case. The judge dismissed the contestation completely. But Mason didn't care about losing legally. He cared about losing publicly, losing to me. As soon as we stepped outside, he lunged at me. You think this is over? He screamed, shoving me backward. People gasped. Cameras clicked. Someone yelled for security. I stood my ground. Go home, Mason. You stole her from me, he roared. You made her love you more. You did that to yourself, I said quietly. He swung at me. I ducked. He stumbled. Security grabbed him before he could try again, dragging him back as he kicked and shouted, I'll ruin you, Noah. I swear I will. His voice echoed through the courthouse steps long after they pulled him away. The following weeks were hell. He left threatening voicemails. He vandalized the garden again. He slashed my tires. He even tried to break into Grandma's house one night while I slept. I woke to the sound of the back door rattling violently. I grabbed the nearest thing, a lamp, and rushed into the hallway. The door jerked open an inch before the security bar caught it. Then fists slammed against it over and over. You don't deserve that house, Mason yelled from the darkness. Grandma is mine. I called the police. By the time they arrived, Mason was gone again. But something changed that night. Fear turned into anger, and anger turned into determination. I decided to restore everything he destroyed. Not for me, but for Grandma. Took weeks to rebuild the garden. Weeks to repaint walls, replace windows, replant roses. Some days I thought I'd collapse from exhaustion. Some days I cried in the dirt like a child. But I kept going. Because love wasn't just memory. It was action. Exactly what Grandma always said. Things finally calmed down, until the day I got another message. But this time it wasn't from Mason. It was from the police. They had arrested him. He'd broken into a hardware store trying to get supplies to finish the job. When the police questioned what he meant, he said, I'm going to destroy the whole house. If I can't have it, no one can. He was arrested immediately. I sat on the couch for a long time after that call, staring at the floor, feeling a bizarre mix of relief and sorrow. He was my brother, but he had chosen a path Grandma would have cried to see. The next day, I visited him at the county jail. He looked tired, angry, defeated, but still my brother. He glared at me through the glass. You came to gloat? No, I said softly. I came because Grandma would want me to. He scoffed. Save the holy crap for someone else. You can still fix your life, Mason. Why the hell would I do that? Because you're not as lost as you pretend. He stared at me. For the first time in months, his eyes softened barely. Just enough for me to see the broken kid behind all that rage. Grandma loved you too, I whispered. No, he choked. She loved you more. She loved us differently, I said. And that's okay. He didn't reply. He just looked away, jaw tight, eyes wet. And for the first time, I saw something like regret in him. I left the jail wondering if maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of his healing. 6 months passed. I restored Grandma's home completely. The roses bloomed again. The garden smelled like her smile. On a warm June afternoon, I sat on the porch drinking tea from her favorite mug, staring at the sunset streaking gold across the sky. For the first time since her death, I felt peace. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Not a threat this time. Just one sentence. Thanks for not giving up on me. It was Mason. I smiled softly. Grandma was right. Truth always finds its way out. And sometimes, so does love. The kind you don't choose. The kind you fight for. The kind you keep alive even after the person who taught it to you is gone. You just heard a story of betrayal, survival, and quiet revenge. If it left you thinking, hit like, share it forward, and subscribe for more true emotional stories that'll stay with you long after they end. Every click helps another story find its voice.